Hello. So in this tutorial we want to talk about the mechanics of topology. And so for the first part we are going to look at how we can create topology inside of ZBrush. At the end of the day, whether you create it inside of ZBrush, you create it in Maya, Max, XSI, it doesn't really matter. We're going to use pretty much the same set of tools to project or to transfer geometry from one mesh to another. But Z-spheres do have their own projection algorithm. It's not really going to be the one that we use for the most part. Instead, what we're going to use is projectall and zproject. But let's talk about just the mechanics of setting this up. So we're going to go into rigging, select mesh, and we're going to choose our reference mesh. This is the mesh that has, well, let's just take a look at it. It has all of the sculpting topology and all of the shape that we want, but it doesn't have any of the topology that we want. Let's say we wanted to go in and add edge loops for the eyes and mouth so that we can get in there and start to explore blend shapes, expressions, things like that. We've got to do that. We've got to re-topologize that. So we're going to go to the Topology tab next, press Edit Topology, and then the very first thing we do is just click outside the surface to deselect this big red dot. And you want to get into the habit of deselecting all the time, just clicking outside and deselecting. I'm going to go into the Transform palette and turn Symmetry on. Note that symmetry is not actually active, or sorry, let me rephrase that. It doesn't seem like it's active until you click on the surface. As soon as you click on the surface and draw a line, it'll be active in both places. Now, we're just going to do some quick edge looping around the eye. Zoom in a little bit. Then we're going to continue that here, here, connect, and we're really just drawing each polygon face. Now let me close these as well. Notice I click outside to deselect, come in, connect, deselect, connect, undo that, deselect, click, click, and then carry that line through as well. Boom, and boom. Alright, and looks like we've got our first little problem. That's not quite the topology I was going for, so I'm going to press Alt, delete one of those Z-spheres, then click, click, click to recreate it, and deselect, and then start connecting them. Click, and on from there. Now I press A, and that's much better, much more what I'm looking for. Now let me just continue this across. Or I should say up right now. Now I don't like to add an extra edge loop around the center. That's going to happen just naturally. So I'm going to turn symmetry off, and I'm just going to deselect and click from one to the other, deselect, one to the other, deselect, one to the other, and just keep going from there to there. Press A, and there we go. Now I can continue this. But I want to reposition this point, so I'm going to go into Move, move that down, back into Draw, click to connect. And notice how it doesn't quite connect. So anytime that you move the vertice, you have to make sure that you deselect and then select it again. And then you'll be in much better shape. Oh, looks like I did that without symmetry on. So something to be mindful. Definitely got to keep symmetry on your mind. How far off did we get? Press A. Okay, I'm going to turn my symmetry back on. Okay, and notice as I'm clicking on the surface, I'm actually not drawing z-spheres. And that's because I'm not in draw mode. So make sure that you get into draw mode. Switch to move, and then move these points down. Move those points up. Press A, and there. We're starting to get the topology that's going to work for us for the face. I'm going to continue this just a little bit. I'm going to go into Draw, deselect, and click from this point down here to the corner of the nose, out here for the nostril, and then down, I would say about right here. The nose area gets a little bit tricky. I'm going to just kind of keep it mostly simple, just creating a side plane essentially. Let me switch into move and really just emphasize that. And so that's going to be a side plane, and side plane. Notice that as I click on the surface, I'm actually sometimes moving other z-sphere links. That's because my draw size is selecting them. So if I lower my draw size, then I'll be in much better shape. Now, how do we want to do this? Turn symmetry off, and then make sure I'm in draw, connect, deselect, connect, deselect. And let's connect these right now. Then I'm going to deselect this, and I'm going to create a little, let me turn symmetry on, transform, yes. I'm going to click a point there and connect it there, and then turn symmetry off to allow me to connect to that point. Press A, and we've got our nose capped. So let's just continue this line a little bit further, and then we'll carry on. Deselect. I'm going to select this point, here, 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 deselect, here, and here. Press A, and there we go. Again, I forget my symmetry. So something to be mindful of. It's very easy to forget that. But also very easy to undo. Get back in here, make sure I turn my symmetry back on, and quickly draw these points out. And let's just connect. Deselect, boom, boom, press A. And we've got the beginning of a face mask in there. Now, once we have this done, our next step is to start to transfer detail. So that's really where we're going with this. And we can just create the low res mesh in ZBrush with these z-spheres. But no matter what, we want to be projecting. So let's look at z-sphere projection. First thing I'm going to do is turn it on. Then I'm going to go to Adaptive Skin and just press Preview. You get the same result if you press A. Now the next thing is to go into Density and increase the slider so that there are enough polygons to pick up the detail. So you see now we're actually getting the detail. Looks like 5 is a good number. Let's turn frame off. Snapshot that to canvas, and let's bring in our original. You can see the detail's pretty good. Up in the forehead looks like we lost a little bit of information, but around in the eyes and all of that, we're doing not too shabby. We probably should have subdivided that or set the density slider to 6 instead of 5, but that is a pretty good capture. Let's go in, Adaptive Skin, and set that to 6. And then you'll see we'll capture even more detail. So getting much better up in there. So that's a brief breakdown of how we would lay out the z-sphere structure. But in order to actually convert that into a mesh that you can sculpt, you have to go and do one more step. In the tool palette, Adaptive Skin, you have to press Make Adaptive Skin. And then when you select this skin mesh, notice there's no more rigging, no more topology. This is a poly mesh that you can go in, move points around, sculpt on the surface, and take it from there. And so the idea is that at the end of the day, you'll have laid out the z-spheres for an entire mesh, like this. So that, let's turn A off, or projection off, press A, set our density skin down to 2, and there you go. Now in this case I haven't done anything for the nose, but the rest of this mesh is pretty much laid out. So now if I press, turn off preview, press projection, and then turn preview back on, I'm transferring not only the sculpt, but also the color information. So let's go into texture, turn that off, and you can see I'm picking up a lot of information. Now I'm missing stuff in the nose, and I'm definitely missing stuff in the ear here, but I've left those in there so that you can kind of see what happens to the top, what you're able to project based on the topology that you have. So let's go back a step or two. Let's go back to there and turn preview on, and notice that in the low res over here there is no edge looping for the ear to speak of. There's no edge looping for the nose, but here there's edge looping for the ear, and so the ear gets really well picked up on the on this side. Nose loses some information down here in the nostrils, where I really should have edge loops, and the ear on the other side over here is just really missing out. But that's par for the course. Just something to be mindful of. So now, again, to convert this into a mesh that you can edit, you have to turn projection on, go to preview, and press make adaptive skin. Then you select the tool that says skin and the rest of your name. Let's turn colorize off, and the rigging tab, adaptive skin are all gone. And here is a mesh that we can then turn symmetry on for, get in, start to sculpt, edit, and adjust the shape for.